Hello, walkers, and welcome to Livingston, Montana. I'm going to do something a little different today. I'm going to narrate this as I review the footage. The wind on this particular day, which was Monday, was really, really strong. And even though it was about half of what it was the night before and the day before, my microphones just couldn't handle it. And when I got back to the studio, the audio track is just terrible. So I'm going to try this and let me know how you like it. I am going to play a little music under this just so it's not a flat background sound. I know many of you don't care for the music, and I hope you'll stick with us or at least come back next week when we hopefully have our consistent but perseverance of audio travails figured out. So this day was mid-October, and it was about 55 degrees Fahrenheit. I think that's 13 degrees Celsius. It was about 9:30 in the morning. The night before, we had a ton of wind. One of the things, the reason I did this actually was I get a lot of requests for places to walk, which I appreciate, adds to my list, but often they are in a different country or continent, and given the situation today and the financial costs involved, all I can do is there's a couple little dogs. I forgot those guys. That was a big Saint Bernard. Anyway, the best I can do is add them to the list and hope to get to them if I get near there in the future. However, a couple days ago, someone commented requesting a walk in Livingston in the fall, and since the colors this year have been so amazing, I thought, hey, why not? As I mentioned, the wind didn't really cooperate, but we did the walk anyway. And earlier in the morning, the sun was, the clouds hadn't come in, and the sun was just amazing. And we get a little touch of that towards the end here, and a little bit in the middle. We are walking down Main Street, and the mountain in the distance you can see is Livingston Peak, and you can actually drive halfway up there, and there's a trailhead. It's a long, steep dirt road, but totally accessible in the non-snowy times. We have some of these painted fish around. That's a big thing here out west and in Montana, probably in other places as well. I think West Yellowstone has bison. Other places have other things, but we have fish. I think Ennis has fish too. This mural on the left, that is only a couple years old. They went and redid that, which has been really nice. We've got a lot of restaurants on Main Street. Off to the left, you'll see True North Coffee that used to be Chad's, and there was another shop in there in the meantime, but True North is really great. Off to the right you have the soup bar. That's got great soup and sandwiches, and this new Campione just came in a few weeks ago and has been full every evening. They do Italian dinners, as you might guess. We are going to cross Calendar here. That's the Mint across the way. I don't know if they still serve food. They kind of go back and forth. Off to the right, that neon sign is Saxon Friar, an old bookstore. It's been there ever since I've been here, so that's 15 years or so. And what do we got coming up here? I love these old building facades. They're fantastic. Just looks a lot like the Old West. In fact, they filmed part of a river runs through it here. Various sections, a church, as well as I think the alley scene when the boys are really young. I love this Robert Osborne gallery. He used to be over on Calendar and he's moved, but he has these wonderful black and white portraits, and they're just really striking. This is the Sport on the right. It used to be full of a lot of dead animal heads. Really cool, old school Montana place. They've redone it, which it needed, but they took some of the animal heads out. Still great food, a great place to go have a meal or a drink if you're coming through town. Off to the right we have a furniture store, which has changed hands several times. I guess that's this here. And I forget what it's called now. It's hard to keep track. And then the pickle barrel, which actually off to the left there, I'd actually started over in Bozeman across from MSU. They have a little hole-in-the-wall sandwich shop over there. This is much bigger. They sell sandwiches and ice cream and soups, and a great place to get some food if you want takeout for your summer picnic or your outing. Quick and easy. And then we are now crossing, I think this is Lewis. Yeah, Lewis. See these old buildings? I love these sort of old architectural styles, and obviously old for the Western United States. They're just little brand new compared to some of those buildings in Europe and Asia and South America. You can see the flag blowing in the wind, and that's in the lee of that building. The one up ahead, which is actually next to, I think, sort of a antique / junk shop. It's sort of more indicative of the wind at the moment. We are known for wind, of course. And the reason, I know I said I wanted to do this regarding the fall colors, but my office is downtown, and downtown is pretty scenic, so I figured I would start there. You can see the wind had taken off a lot of leaves. We used to joke, I used to live on Calendar, and I used to joke about how I just rake all my leaves in the fall into the street and let them blow on down to Big Timber. Sorry to all our viewers in Big Timber, which I've done a walk through there earlier this spring, so check that out. Look at that tree. Isn't that amazing? These are, I think, mainly cottonwoods that are turning, and willow bushes and that sort of thing. Coming up on the right is a relatively new Neptune's Tap House and Eatery. They used to be affiliated with the Neptune's Brewery, which is that's on the other side of town. But they are no longer affiliated due to some legal issues with the state and licensing of the liquor license, which are pretty arcane in Montana. Anyway, great place to eat. Lots of actually really good sushi, which you would not expect to get in Montana, but they do a great job. The white building we just looked at off to the right here, this is Clark Street we're crossing. So this white building on the right is Wilcoxon's Ice Cream, and they are our local and regional ice cream manufacturer based here in Livingston. And they have flavors like Moose Tracks and Montana Moose Moss and a bunch of other huckleberry flavors, and it's really good ice cream. What else we got here? I love these old street lamps as well. Oh yeah, it is a time of the pandemic, and our local business development made these banners that you saw on the light post. There's going to be another one coming up, and they're under the banner of Explore Livingston, and they got some CARES money to help put up these banners, encouraging people to do the basic things that we all need to do to keep each other healthy these days. Call before you go to check for any different hours, wear your mask, social distance, and stay home if you're not feeling well. So those are just the basics we need. The cases in Montana, and in particular Park County, have been spiking. We've got more active cases than we've ever had, and it is becoming concerning. So be aware of that. This is Geyser coming up here. These streets kind of go east-west, but they're kind of on a diagonal to the north-south, east-west line, which somehow eludes me. There's some nice fall foliage there, and some more coming up on the right. Last year, I don't know if I mentioned this, but last year we had a early freeze and rain, and most of the leaves just, look at that bush, how much it's blowing. Most of the leaves just turned brown and fell right then and there. So we didn't have a great color season last year, but this year has been wonderful. And hopefully it will continue. We got a lot of rain and wind again last night, so a lot of the leaves have changed. But as you'll see on this walk, there's still a lot of trees that haven't turned yet, so hopefully we'll get some more here, and maybe I can do some more walks. For instance, over in Bozeman, the south side of Bozeman, the older neighborhoods have a lot of great hardwood trees, deciduous trees that will change, and it's really pretty in the fall as well. Straight ahead is the Park County High School. Their mascot are they're the Park County Rangers, of course, for the park rangers down in Yellowstone. We're going to head down to Sacagawea Park, and I was planning to walk along the dike upstream, because you get a good view of the valley, and that would be sort of southeast or southwest. Sorry. But the wind was so strong that I was hoping I could avoid some of that wind noise by looping around the park the other direction along this creek to the right, which is Fleshman Creek, and have the wind at my back coming down the dike. So that's what I ended up doing. Ultimately futile, of course, because I'm re-recording my talk. Let me know if you like this way of doing things, if you don't like a way of doing things. I normally like to talk as I go. It's sort of sharing that element of discovery. I mean, even here in my little town, I can discover new things and new details. Oh, look at these colors on those trees. Looking at some ducks down in the water there. You can see them swimming. In any case, let me know what you think. Give us a like, a thumbs up, hit that button, subscribe if you haven't done so, and click the bell to get notified when we release new videos. There's a little magpie flying around. I don't know if you knew this, but magpie, I've been told, correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments, is short for maggot picker, because they eat maggots off of carcasses. I suspect that name was from Europe, because they do have European magpies. I've definitely seen them eat baby birds out of other birds' nests. I've seen them harass other birds, and so they are pretty aggressive little fellows. This edifice on the right, this thing on the right, is the city pool, which they actually managed to open up this year. They've been talking about closing it down for a couple of years because it's so leaky and so in need of, well, it's just cost too much to maintain and to keep it filled with water, and they don't have the money to replace it. It would cost way too much to go in and dig it out and fix it. So they're trying to figure out a good solution on having a community swimming pool. It would be great if they could come up with the money to make one indoors, but as I'm sure everybody's aware, that is an expensive proposition for a town of 8,000 people. This is the Lagoon, and Fleshman Creek flows in and then out of this. And it's not really a place you want to swim. They do have a fishing derby, but I'm not sure I would eat the fish out of this particular lagoon, just because the E. coli levels from all the waterfowl and pets is probably fairly high. This building up ahead, I've always loved it. I wanted to open up a coffee shop or a little cafe in here. It just seems so perfect with that little courtyard, that stone wall and courtyard, and the old brick building. But, you know, we can't do everything we want to do. I think there are apartments in there, and sometimes people use parts of it as studios, art studios. I'm not really sure. You can see the raft off to the right. People are sort of finishing up the floating season. This is 3rd Street. Off to the left, you can see a little boulder that they've put in a few years ago for bouldering. Rock climbing's kind of a thing out here. And you can see, you know, the differences in the various colors of these trees. I suspect these might be ash trees. just because we had similar tree in front of our house over on Calendar when we lived there. Wow, look at those vibrant colors. Now I have added a little saturation in GoPro camera, which I'm using, the GoPro 8. Has added some saturation, so but that's pretty accurate. Those are pretty vibrant colors and trees. Look at that wind. The wind gets to going so hard that our house that we live in now, it has 2 stories, and it feels like it's going to shake the house. The house is really solid, but it creaks and groans a little bit with the gusts, and it blows our lawn furniture around and takes the apples off the trees. This is Yellowstone Street, and it's a big wide boulevard. It's a road on which a lot of the further down that way the older, bigger houses are. And it's also, forgot about this, since we're coming up on Halloween, the health department is encouraging people to just trick or treat in their own little neighborhoods this year. Normally, the way they do it here in Livingston is they close down Yellowstone from about this section over to Park Street along the railroad, so behind us. And all the kids, not all, but most of the kids and their families come down to Yellowstone and trick or treat there. And the local thrift shop, Community Closet, raises money to hand out candy to the homeowners so they're not out of pocket. And a lot of people have Halloween parties along the street, and if you go to that, you're expected to bring a bag of candy for them to hand out as sort of a housewarming gift or whatever, guest gift. And there's just thousands of people. Now, obviously in the middle of a pandemic, that's not the best system, so they're encouraging people to just stay around their own homes this year. I mean, in the recent vicinity. This is McGee Street. One of the things I wanted to mention was along the dike and the far side over to the left, around Memorial Day, they put up 100 flags, American flags, and they do a little ceremony with the VFW comes down and honor guard, and they do a little ceremony for Memorial Day, commemorating those who have given their lives in defense of our country, the United States. So shout out to them. It's really pretty moving and really kind of a nice thing that they do. This is off to the left, Sacagawea. We have these tennis courts. I think there are about 6 of them, and they redid those a couple years ago. These particular 2 were in bad shape at the time, but they've redone them, repainted them, resurfaced them, and they're really pretty nice. I'm always a little surprised to have so many tennis courts in such a windy town, but we do, and they're pretty awesome. We have a lot of Canada geese down here. I mentioned the waterfowl before, but we used to come down and bring our 2 little kids down here, and it was a lot of fun to feed the ducks and geese. Here is the inlet, or the part of Fleshman Creek that flows into the lagoon. I mentioned lagoon earlier. I didn't mention that in the winter it usually freezes over, and people will go out, shovel out a clear space, shovel the snow off, and have a place for people to ice skate. And they'll play a little pickup hockey maybe, or not. And there's usually 1 or 2 people that are willing to go out there and shovel. From time to time, they'll have an ice rink that they'll sort of flood and let freeze, and let people skate out there, and that'll have sideboards like you would at an indoor rink. But it's sort of from year to year, you never really know where it's going to be or if it's going to be. And there were some geese having a little bit of a intertribal gang war over there when I was focusing on them. It's getting pretty violent. Out there are soccer fields, and in the before times, they would have soccer practices and some soccer games out there. Of course, now we have the north side fields, which I guess were put in about 10 years ago, maybe a little less. Really fantastic soccer fields over on the other side of Park Street, way off to the right. And of course, you can see the wine glass area down below. Those are the mountains in the distance. And I just, talking about learning new things about where you live, I just learned recently the name of that. I always thought it was the shape of the canyon formed the stem of a wine glass kind of situation. But in reality, it was named because some local guy was cutting firewood up there, and the clearing that he made looked like a wine glass. And so it was called the wine glass. You can see a lot of berries, and these I think are cherries, choke cherries, or some sort of cherry on the ground here. And it is the time of year when animals, particularly black bears, will sometimes come into town. There's also a beaver that lives in this Fleshman Creek area this year, and I was kind of hoping to see that, which I didn't. But we do get bears in. Often I've seen moose in this little Fleshman Creek section that's backed up a little bit. I've heard that there have been cougars a little bit further south, but probably in here as well. In fact, the bears over on the Myers Creek Trail, which I've filmed before, I think earlier in the year, they have that trail closed down right now because there's a family of black bears in there. This is a time when they're really trying to pack on as much weight as they possibly can so that they can have a nice comfy rest as they hibernate through the winter. It's called their hyperphagic or hyperphagia stage. And so you got to be a little extra careful. They're not really looking for lean human meat, of course, but you don't want to surprise them. Obviously, in the middle of the day, I'm not really too worried about that in the middle of town. I am looking for that beaver here. Fortunately for us, unlike in DC where those beavers were chopping down or gnawing the cherry trees there, these cherry trees have been left alone so far. I guess the beavers have plenty of other food sources. There have been beaver down, I think I filmed along Mayor's Landing, which is a dog park. You can maybe hear the train in the background here. They've had beavers right at the outlet of Fleshman Creek to the Yellowstone, and it dams up at the Fleshman Creek and floods part of the trail, and so they've had issues throughout the years trying to keep those out of there. Sorry about that rattle. I'm holding the microphone in my hand. Anyway, they haven't had any kind of flooding issues, so I think they've left the beavers alone here, but I could be wrong. I'm not sure I was there. I saw some mud on the ground. It looked a little bit like bear scat, so I was checking to see, but it turned out to be mud with some grass in it. Not to be too graphic. Love these oranges mixed in with the greens. Over to the left in this section of Sacagawea Park, there are picnic tables. There's a pavilion where you can go and reserve. As I mentioned, my office is downtown. To have picnics in the summer. You saw some paint on the pavement there. Every year they have something called the Night Owl Run, I think is what it's called. And this year they had to do it kind of what they said was virtually. So basically they mark out the course and you just run it on your own. I think it's a 5K, and then they have these other ones like the moose chase, which it sounds pretty bad when you describe it, but there's this. It's for little kids, and somebody dresses up as a moose in this moose costume, and I think the moose. No, they must chase the moose. I was thinking that the moose chased them. My kids have done it, but I had to work that day, and the idea of this moose chasing these terrified little 3 and 5-year-olds down the street was making me laugh. Sorry. Coming up on River Road, this is the dike that I was mentioning. We're going to make a left here and go downstream. River really picks up. The colors across this little braid of the Yellowstone out on 9th Street Island were pretty amazing, pretty vibrant, pretty saturated. and I think I was able to get a view of those. In 1997, I think it was 96 or 97. I think it was 97. They had record floods in Livingston, and this dike must have been there at the time. They've got a lot of old river rock, a lot of old trees in here, but Livingston got a lot of water, a lot of flood damage in the city. There's those trees across the other side, and those are willow on that little section between us and the far side of the river. You can see some snow in the peaks back there as well. Anyway, they had a lot of flooding, and so I think they continued this dike further down. And if anybody knows the specifics on that, please correct me. You end up mixing, as you live in a place, the fact gets mixed in with rumor over the years and often blends together. You can see those trees blowing around. I think it was blowing 35 miles an hour, which honestly is not that strong for Livingston. I think, as I mentioned, it was about half as bad as it was the night before. And there's that little pavilion I was mentioning. There used to be a little wading pool. I think I may have discussed this in an earlier video, but from what I understood, they couldn't afford to keep a lifeguard on duty, so for liability reasons, they just stopped filling it and just sat there for years and years. And then finally, a friend of ours went out and with some others, got some people together. They filled it with sand and made a river stone labyrinth, meditation labyrinth, in the middle of it. And they go down and maintain it. Sometimes kids go in there and mess it up, but they'll go down there and maintain that. And it's a really nice little addition to the park. Off to the right in this river, there in the island, there are a lot of river rocks, and there's also down in there, look at those colors. Down in there, there's a Montana Banksy, and that is a local artist that, much like Banksy, is not really known. I don't know who it is. And they go around making these river rock art, and there's a lot most of them are below the high water mark, and so they're kind of a mandala, like a Buddhist mandala, where they make that colored sand and they spend hours and hours and hours making these beautiful designs, and at the end they sweep it all away as a sort of a reminder, I think, that all things are temporary, and not to get too invested in the status quo. Anyway, there's some up high, and this person has a Instagram handle called Montana Banksy, and it's really kind of a fun little thing to do, to go around and find these bits of rock art. And we should make a Google map of that. Traveling Mel has written about it and posted about it on her blog, so travelingmel.com if you want to see that. There's the Banksy right there, one of them. And here is where the 9th Street Island ends, off to the right, and you've got the Lagoon on the left. And of course, you've got a ton of, just checking to make sure I'm recording, ton of wind, and oh, look at those colors. It really is beautiful here this time of year. We've been driving around southeast and central Montana, working on a project for Traveling Mel, a couple projects, and the colors of the grasses and the fall sun and the changing colors of the trees and the wind. And it's not quite cold yet, so it's been just a beautiful, beautiful fall. I had a couple people mention the vertical motion recently. I do make an effort to keep that at a minimum. However, it is a bit of a challenge, and it's kind of inherent in almost all of these walking videos that people do. I had a vertical axis stabilizer from Scotty Makes out of Australia, and it was great, but it did develop a squeak sound, and so that was a problem. But then I got around that with my microphone system, but then it broke because I was not as careful with it as I should have been. I basically broke it. Anyway, I bought this cheap one, and it kind of works, but not as well as the Scotty Makes. So I just went ahead and plunked down, and as it turns out, they have developed a new version that will also take GoPros. So I'm pretty psyched to get that. However, it is being shipped from Australia, so it's going to take about a month to get here. That's just a reminder to invest in the people that make the quality things instead of the cheapest knockoff that you can get. I need to be reminded of that every few years. This is the band shell, that building to the left, and also the place, well, they have a lot of events here, but mainly it's where they hold the farmers market every Wednesday throughout the summer, 4 to 8 p.m. about, 4:30 maybe. And you get local farmers and producers as well as local craftspeople. You can get, there's a meat place in there, a farmer that they raise, started out raising pork, 4-H pigs, and did so well that they now raise pigs and other meat and process it and sell it direct to consumer. You got a lot of crafts, a lot of kids set up booths. Our son, used to set up booths and sell jokes for a while. They made a killing selling jokes. They sold flags for a while. They were cute enough to get away with that at the time. Anyway, and they have a program where they have a little school, informal school where kids can, look at these colors. The kids can go and learn about how to run a business, manage your costs, manage your products, manage your customers, and keep track of all that stuff. And then they get a discounted booth section. So they can set up a booth for, I think it's like 25 cents or something compared to what other people pay. Really cool thing. I think it's called the Youth Empowerment School or something like that. Yes. Off to the left, we have the softball and baseball fields. And I'm just going to let you look at the color for a little bit. It really was a beautiful day when the sun popped out. Off to the left, you can see Sheep Mountain and the Crazy Mountains. Crazy Mountains are up in the clouds. They're reaching up into the peaks are up in the clouds there. And then you see on the left third of the screen, you see a post with a osprey nest at the top. And they put that there to keep the osprey from nesting on the light poles, I think, and being injured or electrocuted or starting fires. You can also see the back side of the high school there. And every year that I've been here, there has been a family of ospreys that raise their chicks there. And it's really cool to walk along this dike that's looking back upstream. Look at those cottonwoods on the Ninth Street Island in the sunlight. Anyway, you take your little kids along here. It's a great path to exercise your kids. At the time we had dogs. Great for the dogs because you can take them off leash here, and you watch the family of ospreys grow up. And sometimes you'll see the parents bringing in fish to feed their young, or you'll see the young taking their first trial flights and that sort of thing. Really kind of a neat path here that we have in Livingston. And one of the great things to do if you're visiting is to come down here in the mornings or the evenings and get your walk in. Excuse me. That little bit of fiber or string off to the right is part of my gaffer tape that came loose in the wind. And I used that to jury rig the GoPro to this cheap vertical axis stabilizer that I've been making do with the last few months. So pardon that. Off to the right, just beyond that hill, quarter mile, is I-90. And if the wind weren't blowing and I weren't speaking over the audio, you might hear the rumble of diesel semis and the rumble strips from time to time. It's part of the background song, that with the trains and the wind in general of Livingston. See the wind blowing those bushes and trees around. These are willows here. These trees really have to be pretty strong out here to withstand these really harsh winds. We get every year about November, December, we get semis that seem to blow over on the highway because the wind funnels down out of the Paradise Valley in Yellowstone, rushes down Paradise Valley, and there's a natural choke point there at the canyon, what I was calling the wine glass for years, and it's like a nozzle hitting the interstate there, and they put up signs saying semis divert through town, and of course people ignore that from time to time, and over they go. This path up ahead is marked as no trespassing. Here in the United States, and it varies by state, but generally speaking, if you see posts with orange markers on the top, that is posted as no trespassing. Out in Montana, when 10 or 15 years ago, if it wasn't marked, you could go on it, and you still had to close the gates and not leave trash and all the basics, but all the basic decency. But then they've switched that as more people have come out and bought trophy ranches, and more people have come out and trashed people's land. So you can see this one is marked very clearly. That's fairly recent that they've done that painting and that private property text there, but they must have had some people violating and not really following their wishes. But rumor has it they've said that there will never be a path from here down to Mayor's Landing, which you can see all along the dike here would be a wonderful place to walk. That is disappointing, but it's their private land and they can do or not do what they want with it for the most part. So can't fault them too much. We're just doing a little pan here. That building in the background is the high school off to the left. We're on the back side of that, and as we come up here, you'll see this is all off to the right is kind of a cottonwood stand, and then they have a hay field, and then we will get into the high school where they have the track and the football and soccer field. They tried to have some of those sports go on this year. I don't know what the status of those are. With surging cases around Montana, I suspect they won't have traveling teams, but you never know. You can see the difference the light makes on these trees. When the light's on them, they almost glow, and now that the sun's behind a cloud, they sort of dull, and then you can see, look, it lights right up when the sun comes out on them off to the right there. So there's that hay field. Again, you can see these red or these orange markers, no trespassing. And then those gray buildings in the distance are the fairgrounds, which I think I walked you guys past this spring. There's the stadium and football field and soccer field. And then off to the left, and you got the shot put places. Off to the left is a baseball field, but also where the high school typically will practice for football. My guess is, since there isn't any equipment out there and it's mid-October, that they are not playing football this year. up ahead in a few minutes, we're going to get to, excuse me. Well, first of all, this is also where on July 2nd, not this past year, but in normal years, in the before times, they would have the Livingston Roundup Parade. So it's a 3-day rodeo and other events around town. And on the 2nd, they have a big parade every year, except last year. And this is the staging area for a lot of the floats. And it's not the best organized of places, of events, in terms of if you're in the parade, you sort of filter in from 3 or 4 different streets, and they kind of let you in as they see fit. However, it seems to work pretty well, and it's when you with your dad who's driving mules or maybe a pack train, and there's motorcycles and clown cars and all kinds of craziness. It can be a little stressful, especially for me, who is not in control of the situation and likes to be in control of the situation. Anyway, coming up ahead, we're going to get to the skate park that they put in a few years. The community, some local skaters got together and with the community and raised a lot of money for this really nice skate park with its cement and bowls and dishes, and it's really a neat thing for our little town, and it gets a lot of use. But this summer, one of the grantors, I think, was Jones Soda, and one of their sponsored athletes or spokespeople is Tony Hawk, and they just not randomly, I'm sure, but they surprisingly just dropped in one day, and all the people out at the skate park got to meet him and skate with Tony Hawk, and just blew their minds. And it was all over Facebook. So many happy smiles and happy faces, and it just really made people's year and made a huge difference. So kudos to Jones Soda and Tony Hawk for visiting our little burg in the middle of Montana. I think he's from Southern California, and we're a long way from LA, I can tell you that. And what else we got here? I don't know. Oh, I do know. The schools here are on a 2 days a week alternated schedule, and due to the COVID situation. And I think 2 to 3 days. I think it's 2 days and then 3 days off. And then distance learning the rest of it. And I think students can opt out of the going to school and just distance learn. I know that a lot of schools are having issues with that. We did have a couple cases with, I think, a teacher and a staff maybe early on, but that's it. Didn't get any further transmission of that so far. There's been a lot of controversy or back and forth in the state about schools reporting cases. There's the communities need to know, and parents need to know, but at the same time, schools are in a little bit of a bind because they can't violate students' and families' privacy. And these are all a lot of legal issues, so they've sort of been trying to figure that out. You can see somebody who is not in school, an adult, is out enjoying the park. And the building beyond is the Civic Center. We'll walk past there. It's a, 1940s era building that really needs a redo. But they have little community activities in the winter for a place for kids to go and play, at least in the before times. And this is the skate park. Really cool little. I don't skateboard anymore. I did a little bit as a kid, not like this though. And we had nothing like this. This have been a dream. And on the weekends and in the summer, there are tons of kids out here. They had to close it a little bit because there were so many people. But obviously they've opened it back up. Some people up here have brought in some old chairs and put it in the shade of this tree, which is kind of fun. And the Civic building off to the left, Civic Center, They have a basketball court, a couple basketball courts, so the local basketball leagues, kid leagues, will play there as well as over at the high school. They also have, or have had in the before times, a little roller skating night. It's not a very big rink, but it's fun in the middle of winter to have a place to go and take the kids and get them outside, or at least out of the house. And they'll have big community Christmas dinner, Thanksgiving dinner down there. We can go get food, and they will have a little Christmas market, sort of a Christmas farmers market around December, and etc. Now this is the Lagoon, where they will have the ice skating rink in the winter, and then you can see that iconic bridge. I didn't really mention it before, but it's really pretty structure. I should look up the history of that and who designed it and when it was built and that sort of thing. But it's people will fish off of it, and I think occasionally jump off of it. But it's pretty shallow down there. The reason I'm coming over here is to show you the statue of Sacagawea and her son Pompey. This, of course, was an area that Lewis and Clark, or maybe just one of them, came through on their transcontinental trip, and it's kind of a nice little park next to the lagoon here. Then we'll go out to this little pier that obviously needs a little work, little update there, and we'll end our video. Thanks for joining us. Leave us a comment, thumbs up. Sorry that I didn't have the ambient sound, but hopefully this isn't too bad of a substitute. Take care, and until next time, happy steppin'.